All right, everybody, welcome back. This is our final session of this round of Any Game Business. I'd like to welcome Mac from Borderless Studios. He's the CEO, and he's going to be talking to you about how you build up in Japan with grants, communities, and business made simple. And so with that, Mac, the floor is all yours.
All right, perfect. Hello, everyone. My name is Mac Kindima. I'm the CEO of Borderless Studios, and I'm talking to you from Japan. Konnichiwa. All right, let's kind of get started. So today, I'm going to talk a little bit about a few main themes. So I'm going to introduce myself, of course. I'm going to talk a little bit about actually not a little bit, a lot of the language requirements. I think one of the things that really gives us a lot of anxiety, maybe around Japan, is the language requirements, right? How much Japanese do we actually need to know in order to live, right? How much Japanese do we need in order to start a business? And then, of course, business structure, right? Business 101. I'm going to talk a little bit about the different types of structures, as well as their obligations, and then the pros and cons, and then also possible financing options. Then I'll talk a little bit about the community events. Where do you go to find your people, right? Where do you go to find your tribe? Because when it comes to indie game development, right, it's all about community. And then once you make your game, once you find your tribe, where do you show off your game? There's GDC, there's various other places in the US, Gamescom in Europe. So I think it's important to also learn a lot about where you can show off your game here in Japan. And then something I'm very excited about is Creative Tech Shibuya. And so what Creative Tech Shibuya is that it is a program for startups. And it's especially aimed towards foreigners coming from wherever, Korea, Paris, America, to Japan, and being sponsored by the Shibuya government, especially around creative tech such as gaming or art. And then, of course, all the fun stuff of how to reach me and some Q&A. All right, let's get started. All right. So for me, of course, my name is Mac. The studio is based in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota. And then also here in Japan. I've been living here in Japan since 2017, so about 8 years now. I'm going to talk a little bit about, I guess, how I got here, right? How does a guy from the Midwest end up in Japan, right? So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And then finally, I'm going to also talk about navigating the business and game scene here. All right. All right. Midwest to the Far East. All right. So besides just CEO, my various titles are producer and narrative designer. I've worked at various companies such as NativeX, Activision, and Square Enix. And with NativeX, I did marketing. So they did mobile advertising for video games. And when I was working for them, not unfortunately, but I was the guy who, whenever you played an app and something popped up, I was in charge of designing some of the interstitials as well as some of the logic behind it. That's when I got my first exposure to, how can I say it? The global field. So I worked with game such as like Konami, Sega, and during that time, I was able to take 3 months from on a business trip to Japan and meet these companies, and I fell in love with Japan. And since then, that was I want to say 2013. And once that happened, my love for Japan kind of was ignited again. I worked for Activision for a little bit, and I was a Q&A tester, and I played a lot of various games. And this was back like in college. But this was something that really made me excited. But for many of you who are maybe from the Midwest, at the time, there was not a lot of options for game development. I did do a lot of research, and there are a lot of publishing or QA places in Minnesota. And so that's why I was able to get that job at Activision. And then finally, my dream come true. I was able to find a job at Square Enix here in Japan, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next slide. All right. So language learning, or basically my journey, right? So as many of you who enjoy Japan, maybe like anime, manga, maybe you like video games, of course. There's many different reasons why coming to Japan is important. So I'll talk a little bit about my journey as well as my language learning aspects. First of all, in 2017, that's when I decided to leave my job and say, "Hey, family, hey, friends, I'm out." It wasn't as abrupt as I'm making it sound, but I was ready, right? I was around games, right, with NativeX, Activision, but I was not making games. So I decided to take that leap and start my journey. So in 2017, I joined a school called KCP International in Shinjuku, and it was a intensive language program. So that means Monday through Friday, 4 hours every day, straight Japanese. I tried learning Japanese beforehand in the US, but unfortunately, it's very tough to get proficient in a language when you're not immersed in the environment. And so I was living the dream. It was something that I got to, my anime dreams came true. And so I was able to take part in a lot of the school festivals. Here, this is a picture of me at Sports Day and running a relay race. Um, for many of people who did not know, right? I used to run track and field for the University of Minnesota Duluth, and so let's just say I was a bit faster compared to the other competition. Um, then in 2018, this is when things started getting serious. When you're learning Japanese, there's a big difference between casual daily talk and business level talk. It felt like I was basically doing a new game plus, having going to learn the language, having to relearn how to do job interviews, writing, figuring out how to write a resume. It was something that was very eye opening for me. Luckily, my sensei, Nikaido sensei, and many others at the school supported me through the endeavor. So, one thing I'll definitely say is language is very important. It's not necessary. I'll say this: it's not necessary. However, if you want to come to Japan and you don't know Japanese, it's like playing Dark Souls, right? You'll make it, but you'll probably suffer a bit. And then finally, 2019. So Square Enix. So funny enough, I actually got I actually got this job through I guess connections. So I used to go to a lot of networking parties. One of the things in Japan is that maybe very similar to the U.S. is that connections, right? It's about who you know. And when it comes to Japanese people, it's a slower process, and because it's a slower process, it takes time to build these connections. So I actually met my then manager at a English learning party. And so I met him there, and we got to know each other for the past couple years. And eventually, he saw that I was very serious about gaming, very serious about my language learning. And there was an opportunity where one of the members of his team went on maternity leave. And so during that time, I was brought in as a temporary contractor, and I was there for about a year doing community management. And so that was very exciting to me, right? Uh, uh, Taking 2 years at the language school, making connections, basically fighting for my life, so to speak, and being able to finally make it to Square Enix was a dream come true. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the journey from Square Enix to Borderless Studios, and just to let you know that unfortunately, uh, it's not always easy, right? There's going to be setbacks. There's going to be things that happen, and you're just going to have to try your best. And so basically after Square Enix, I ended up starting my own translation company, and I did movies, TV shows, video games. Right? When you want to survive in Japan, you kind of have to do whatever is necessary to make it happen. And so for me, translation, localization was the revenue. Right? That was the key. Other people, I think maybe you've heard, is English teaching. Right? English teaching is another also another very good way to earn your visa and earn a living there with minimum Japanese. But of course, it's not making games. And so finally, back in 2022, there was a writer's strike. And so a lot of the work that I was doing for movies, TV shows, for the subtitles, the work went down. And I was like, hey, you know what? This is a perfect opportunity to pivot. And now that's when I started Borderless Studios. And I'm making a game called Clock Out of 2. And then with Clock Out of 2, basically, long story short, Clock Out of 2 is a visual novel, and it's about workplace hurt, right? We're all going through some pain, some trauma, and we often don't talk about the work-related trauma, right? Whether you're going through layoffs, whether you got a micromanaging boss, these are some of the things that that affects us all. And so in the game, basically, you need to survive the workday. And this is kind of what I've been working on and hoping to find some funding here in Japan. And so now that's kind of me in the nutshell. And now let's get into the nitty gritty of the talk. All right, Business 101. So actually, I'm going to take a sip. 1 second. All right, Business 101. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the business structure. In general, I would say that one of the key differences between Japan and the U.S. is that image. Image is very important. And what I mean by that is that maybe in the U.S., anyone can start an LLC. Anyone can be a CEO. Anyone can be an anything, right? And we as maybe Western people take that at face value, right? I don't need a long history. I don't need to look at your record, right? It's just I'll just say, okay, cool. You're incorporated. You're legal. Sweet. Let's do business. That's not how it works in Japan. In Japan, the type of company you have, as well as the length of it that it's been incorporated, is very important. Japanese people, or the Japanese market, is very risk adverse. So being able to have a certain business type as well as that credibility is very important. So when you come to Japan, of course, you can start your own business. However, it's also important that you partner up, right? So I think partnering up gives you that added credibility. All right. So now I'm going to talk about this first one, which is Kojin Jigyo Nushi. The equivalent is sole proprietorship. So in the US, with sole proprietorship, most people avoid it, right? Because there's the liability, right? If something happens, you're 100% liable and you can be sued. One of the things that I like to talk about with the Kojin Jigyo Nushi is that it's actually not bad to be a Kojin Jigyo Nushi here in Japan. It's a bit different here in a sense that you are not necessarily liable, but the taxes around it are more yasashi or easy, right? They're a little bit easier. With sole proprietorship in the US, it's not as bad because you're considered basically the same as a business, and the taxes aren't you just have to worry about basically income taxes. However, in Japan, right, the kojin jigo nushi, it's basically the same as, let's say, a freelancer, same as a solo developer, and the tax involved is not just income, but there's also a business tax. And with the kojin jigo nushi, as long as you're under about 5K, like USD, you are, sorry, let me rephrase that. 50K, haha, USD, you're usually fine. You don't have to worry about business taxes so much. Next is Godo Kaisha, which is the same as a limited liability company. So this one will be very different compared to the LLC in the US. The LLC in the US, the process is pretty straightforward, I think. There's a lot of different programs or services that let you do it automatically. There's a lot of, you can just go to your state business website and register there. So it's very easy. However, in Japan, it's a bit more work. So with the Goro Gaisha, you'll need to be able to. So no matter what, you only need 1 yen to start a business. However, as we talked about it, that credibility, right? So usually with a Goro Gaisha, you need about what is it equivalent? Like about 200, maybe, nope. I'm trying to do the math, sorry. About 4K in capital, just to show that you're serious, right? Anything less than that, then banks might turn you away. Maybe investors might not be so interested. And so just keep that in mind. With the Goro Gaisha, same thing, limited liability. You'll still have to pay business tax, right? But it's very flexible in a sense that it'll probably take you maybe like a week or two to get everything registered. Now, the Kabushiki Gaisha or Kabushiki Kaisha is similar to a stock company. So this one will take the most time to get registered. With the stock company, right? You'll need to get your business notarized. You'll also need to be able to show a capital of about maybe like 30 to 50K to be taken seriously. And this is the one where investors are the most interested in. So I would just say if you are trying to break into the game industry on a lower budget, right, then I would say the Kojin Jigo Nushi and the Godo Gaisha are your best bets. If you are if you are a game developer and you already have the funds necessary, I would go with Kabushiki Gaisha, right? So it kind of depends on where you're at. All right. All right, I'm gonna take a sip. All right. Business financing. How do we fund a business, right? Um, there's many different ways to fund your business here in Japan, and there's a couple of things that I can kind of go over. So first is grants. Um, the the number one thing you should be aware, grants work a little differently here compared to Japan. Oops, sorry, compared to the US. So in the US, when it comes to grants, uh, you apply and people give you money, right? You may think, oh, what other way is there, Mac? Well, here in Japan, it's the it's the opposite in a sense that what you do is that you need to show the government or the grant program that you have enough money to do the thing that you want to do. Meaning that, let's say in the US, I want to create a prototype. I write down my business plan, I write down what I need to do, and I basically say, hey, this is what I plan on doing, give me money. And if they approve your idea, you get the money and you're good, right? You may have to do some reporting, some things like that, but typically, once the money is handed to you, you are okay. Now in Japan, it's very different. And so what you need to do is the same thing, right? Prove your idea, and then make sure you have the money to do the idea. So this is very important, and in a sense that it makes it very difficult for startups to get, not you are eligible, but it's very difficult to do the grant. Meaning that if I want to get a grant for 5K, right, that means I need to already have the 5K in order to do the thing. And then once I apply for the grant and I get approved, then that 5K can be reimbursed to me later on. So that makes things very different, right? That makes it so that you know, here in Japan, you either you got it or you don't, right? And I think that's one of the things that have made growing a startup here in Japan very difficult, and the startup ecosystem very not so appealing, right? In general, I'm tangenting a little, but in general, Japanese society is all about that long term, right? It's only been recently that uh, that Japanese society has been focusing a lot more on startups, trying to focus on growing that ecosystem. But beforehand, there was a thing called basically lifetime employment, where workers would basically, live for the company, retire for the company, right? And that was the norm. So a lot of the business mindset is graduate from high school, graduate from university, find a good job, finish, right? So I'll leave that there. Now loans. One of the big differences I think with Japanese loans is the interest rate. So Japanese loans have very low interest rates. Um, I definitely recommend loans if you are in a good position, because it's really nice actually. They give a decent amount. I can't I it case by case, of course, but typically most loans are very low interest, and these are things that I think would be a good idea for when you're starting your business. Now, programs. I think this is the biggest one. I think this is the biggest one in the sense that if you are a game developer, if you are trying to start a business, um, this is the key, right? I think right now there, as in the Japanese government, is really trying to push for startups, right? They see that there's a lot of things happening in the market. There's the land is at a record low, and they need something to invigorate the economy. And so a lot of these programs, like for example Jethro, they work with a lot of companies to support them, right? There's also the Osaka Innovation Hub, which is looking to basically support startups in Osaka, as well as the Shibuya Startup program, which I'll talk a bit more at the end. Now, with all these programs, right, whether it's in Tokyo, Osaka, Fukuoka, they are all trying to boost their regional um, environment, right? So I think these programs are really good because one, they include mentorship. I think mentorship is key in any kind of environment, and especially if you are a foreigner here in Japan, right? I think one of the things that's very difficult to navigate is the culture, right? The paperwork is a lot, of course, but I think one of the things that would be necessary for you to learn is the culture. Because if you don't understand the culture, right, if you don't understand your market, it becomes very difficult to go about not just to live but to thrive, right? Another thing that is nice about these programs is that they usually offer visa support, right? And I think with visa support, I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but the visa support is very important. And I'll talk, okay, and then I'll stop. All right, business visas. All right, the different types of visas. Okay, so basically, um, in order to come to Japan, you need a visa. Please do not do business activities while you're on a tourist visa, right? A lot of people unfortunately make that mistake, and they get penalized for a lifetime, right? Um, when It's okay, of course, to come here on a tourist visa and then make business meetings or meet new people or do like informational interviews. That's not a problem at all. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the four major visa types. Um, let's see. With the business manager visa, for many, maybe people have heard about this, maybe people haven't, but it's one of those well-known visa types. And basically, you get, how can I explain it? Um, there is some base things you need to do in order to be eligible for your business manager visa. Um, the hurdle or the entry point for a business manager visa is a bit higher compared to the other visas. So, for example, you need a minimum of 5 million yen, right? That's about what, like 50K or 30K USD. The thing is that you don't need to pay anyone, right? You just need to show that, hey, I have this money to support my business activities, and you're good. Another high hurdle is the physical office space. So this business manager visa is very old, so to speak, which means that you need to do everything very traditionally, right? You need an office space. You need, you need a nameplate. You need to show that credibility, right? It's all about that credibility, right? And so, in order to do that, you need to have an office space, right? Another thing is you need to be able to hire either a full-time worker. So whether this person is of Japanese descent or this person is a foreigner with a permanent residence, um, it's very important that you look into the labor laws, because here in Japan, you'll also have to pay certain insurances, right, as a company. For example, most people need to enroll in social insurance, right? So you'll need to provide that to your workers. And so I'll stop there for the business manager visa. But typically, if you are already established in the US, as in, like, if you're making probably like 100K in revenue and things like that, this is a good fit, I think. It's usually for companies that already have, like, are in the stock market, but for true indie game developers, this it might be a high hurdle, right? So it might be very difficult. So there's a couple of different ways that you can make it happen. Next is the highly skilled professional visa. With this one, I'll say that this is basically a point system, right? This is saying that, hey, you have the necessary requirements in terms of, um, you know, in order to be accepted, right? With this one, you need at least 70 points to apply, and the points criteria kind of vary. but they do favor a lot more of, let's say, corporate level people or like researchers. Um, one of the criteria is your business degrees, right? So did you finish your undergraduate? Did you finish your master's? Do you have a doctorate? And the points scale up from there. Another thing is your Japanese proficiency, right? They're looking for people who want to be here long term. With the For those who are not familiar with the Japanese proficiency test or the JLPT, it goes from level 5 to level 1, with level 5 being the lowest and level 1 being the highest. And then, of course, once you hit that bare minimum, right? If you go above that, for example, like 80 or more, you can apply for permanent residency within a year. Typically, when it comes to permanent residency, um, uh, let's say if I'm on a regular visa, I usually have to be in this country for about 10 years before I apply. There are certain cases where you can apply at the 5 year mark, but typically, I guess I shouldn't say there's not too many typical cases, right? Next is the startup visa. So this one is super exciting, right? As I said before, Japan is looking to invite a lot of foreign talent here in Japan. With the startup visa, you don't have to stress yourself out about having enough money. You don't have to stress yourself out about, being a doctorate, bilingual superstar, right? With the startup visa, you just need to have a business plan, right? Making sure that you have a good understanding of, your business, your product, your service, and then also being able to show that your product or your business is a good fit for the Japanese market. This one I'll emphasize a lot. What's made for the Western audience does not automatically mean it will fit in the Japanese palette, so to speak, right? A lot of people make the mistake of forgetting that the Japanese market is very different, right? You need to be able to tailor your product or your service into for the Japanese market. And that might mean one is making sure your documentation, your service or your product is in Japanese, right? This also means making sure that you have a plan to localize your content, right? A lot of people forget that, and that kind of, that's it's not good. Um, and a lot of investors will steer away from you because you have not taken that into consideration. Next is a resume, right? Uh, so when it comes to resumes, it doesn't need to be fantastic. However, that sounds bad. It should be fantastic. But when it comes to the Japanese resume, it works a little differently compared to the US. Um, in the US, we might have a one-page resume, right? And it'll only be work related. In Japan, you usually have two different kinds of resumes. One is a business resume, which looks at your entire work career, right? They don't want a one pager, they want to see everything, right? So it looks at your entire work career. And the second one is your education resume, right? And they want information from elementary school, middle school, high school. They want to know everything, right? And so I think that's one of the fundamental differences between the US and Japan, is that Japan really values, once again, that image, that credibility, right? So where you went to for elementary school, it's just as important as your most recent job. And of course, there's like monthly interviews, and that's just typical reporting, just making sure that you're doing okay, making sure that you are proceeding as you said in your business plan. And then for the other visa types, of course, there's a work visa, student visa, investor visa. there's an angel investor visa, and I'll talk a little bit about that after this. Spouse, freelance, digital nomad. There's many different visa types, and I'll say this that as long as it's not a tourist visa, all visa types are eligible, unless specifically listed, is you can start a business. The only caveat is that your business is tied to your visa and the same as its limitations. Meaning, for example, a student visa. For a student visa, you're only allowed to work 28 hours a week on a student visa. So that means that if you decide to start a business, right, whether it's a kojin jigyo nushi or sole proprietorship, a godo gaisha or LLC or kabushiki gaisha or a stock company, your company would also be limited to 28 hours a week. So, and this is the same as a spouse visa. So, a spouse visa also has that 28-hour limitation. So, be careful. So, be careful that you are not going outside the parameters of your visa. This also includes work type, right? Um, on a work visa, for example, you need to be able to fit into your category. So the category might be technology, or it might be language professional, or it might be whatever, right? Um, you will need to stay in the parameters of your visa, right? So if I am doing just technology, I can't start up a law firm, so to speak. And so just be careful around that when you're creating these different types or applying for these different types. All right, communities. All right. So when it comes to communities, where do we go, right? Where do we go to find our tribe, find our people? I think one of the things that I've really enjoyed being here in Japan is the community, right? With the community, you are able to find a lot of different resources that you may not have been able to find on your own. You've also be able to find a lot of different networking opportunities, right? As I said before, when I got my job at Square Enix, it was through one of these events, right? I just went there, I started talking to people, and we vibed, right? And then we got to know each other, and eventually it led to an opportunity. So one of the community events that I'll talk about is Otaru. So Otaru has been around for a while now. They're usually based in Discord, but they also have a Facebook group, but the Facebook group is a bit out of dated. But they usually meet every Thursday at in Meguro. That's in Tokyo. And there, they just meet at a classic izakaya, right? And at this classic izakaya, you go in, you'll find a small black dog, and you know you're at the right place. And so Otaru is more of like an ad hoc meeting, right? People will come in after work, maybe at like 9, and just people who are there that are there, you can just meet up. You can meet up, you can drink, you can talk, you can have a good time. One thing I'll mention though is that a lot of these meetups are much later compared to how the US would be. Maybe in the US, you might have like a happy hour either at 6 or 7 directly after work. Japanese people have a longer work cycle. Is that the cycle I want to use? Is that the word I want to use? Basically, instead of a 9 to 5, think most people get off at like 9 to 9, right? Uh, so a lot of these events will be happening a bit later compared to their US counterparts. So just keep that in mind. Tokyo Indies. This one is, I want to say, once a month on a Wednesday. And this is really nice is because they allow you to do presentations. At these presentations, you can basically say you can either show off your game, You can either, even if it's like just a presentation, you can show it off. And it's a really good opportunity to get early feedback, right? Whether it's in Japanese or English, most people can understand you. But of course, the preferred language is always Japanese. Melting Hack. Melting Hack is pretty cool. So I discovered them about a year ago at another networking event. And Melting Hack, what they do is that they focus on hackathons, right? And then recently, they started to focus a lot more on game development or game jams, right? I took part in their game jam last year, and their focus is a bit more on like AI technology. And so I was able to do a game jam and utilize some AI technology, and we ended up winning, right? And so I think that was really exciting because I got to work with game developers, right? Being able to get that experience, being able to really show, okay, this is a Japanese work environment. This is the technology that's going to be used. This is like, their mindset will really help you when it comes to either job searching or when it comes to creating teams. One thing I will always, always recommend is game jams. Please join game jams. They're open, low entry barrier, and you can get a lot of experience. I actually ended up, because I won, I was able to go to a speaker event 2 days ago, and I was able to meet a couple of people from Alibaba Cloud as a potential, business partner, right? And so, because I was able to join this event, I was able to meet, a company or an institution that I normally would not be able to meet. So, I really recommend game jams, even if the game jam is online, right? Online, we're a remote company. Online is still very powerful. Now, IGDA Japan, please support IGDA. They are an amazing organization. They're everywhere, right? So please reach out to your local chapter, right? They have tons of events, and I really recommend this. The only thing is, at least for this IGDA, right? It's mostly in Japanese. So if you go there, you might need to go with a Japanese friend. You might need to be fluent in Japanese, or not fluent, but I guess like casual conversation. But I definitely recommend wherever you are, even if you're visiting a country, please check out their IGDA branch. All right. All right. Major gaming events. You've made the thing, you've met the people. Where do you show off your game, right? So with the biggest one, I think that a lot of people know about is the Tokyo Game Show. With the Tokyo Game Show, it happens once a year, September-ish, right? And so this is something that I really recommend to people. Um, if you can, please get in during the business days. The business day, there's less foot traffic, so you can actually play games and meet the devs behind it and make connections that way. I would also really recommend the business matching events, right? This way you can set up one-on-one meetings. And of course, I think it's very important, right? One thing you should also do, bring business cards. I think we don't really use business cards so much in the West so much, but business cards is very much a credibility thing, right? um, I keep coming back to this topic of credibility, right? Being able to show that you are able to have the base requirements, right? It's really important to building that trust. Tokyo Indie Game Summit. This one is happening in March, actually, and this one is more for indie games, right? So this is happening in Kichijoji. And also for people who are coming in Japan, please let me know. I'm happy to assist. And this is a really good place for you to check out if you want to showcase your games. It's also less stressful compared to the Tokyo Game Show. And so, if you're not really ready or at the level to show at the Tokyo Game Show, Tokyo Indies Game Summit is also a great place. And then another indie game scene, Bit Summit. This one is in Kyoto, right? Kyoto is definitely having a lot more uh, increase in its indie game ecosystem. And Bit Summit is a great place for you to reach out to those Kansai or the West Japan devs. And there's a lot of people you can meet. What else? And then, all right, so I talked about the different programs, right? Whether it's an accelerator, whether it's an incubator, whether it's just a general startup support. And one of the programs is the Shibuya startup. So the Shibuya startup has a couple of different programs, right? One is the Startup Visa, and then there's the Creative Tech Shibuya. The Startup Visa, basically, what it is that you just present your business plan. If you're good, they give you a visa for 1 to 2 years, and then they'll support you with mentorship and an office space. This Creative Tech Shibuya, this is specifically looking for foreign um, either developers, artists who want to bring their technology here to Japan. And I took part in this program, and what it is that basically you submit your pitch deck. If you like it, they get accepted, and then you get 3 minutes to pitch your idea to various investors. After you pitch, then they connect you with companies there. So, for example, I got connected to Bandai Namco Fund 21. And this is a good way to bridge that gap, right? It's very hard sometimes to meet the people you need to meet. And so having a mentorship or experts to assist you in that process is very important, right? One of the things I'll also say to this is that I also got to meet um, how can I say it? Other creatives who are trying to break in the same field as me, right? I met a person that does manga AI, right, where they do mental health, and that's similar to what I'm doing with my game. I've met some people who are also from Korea who are also interested in doing investing in Japanese companies. So now, by going to this event, I'm also have been able to basically broaden my network and also think of new possibilities, right? All right. And then once again, this is me. My name is Mac Kindima, and our game demo, Clock Out of 2, is available on Steam. Um, you know, uh, if you like to be traumatized, if you like to, learn how to heal from workplace hurt, then please try the game. And then one thing I forgot to mention, or I said I was going to mention, is the Angel Investor Visa. Right now, this isn't official, but the Shibuya startup is looking to bring in more angel investors. So they're specifically creating a visa for those who are interested in angel investment. And so if you go to LinkedIn, go to Shibuya Startup, please reach out to them and ask, right? And so I will end on that note, and I'll say, hey, thank you very much. And please reach out to me via Discord, LinkedIn. I'm happy to chit chat. Arigato gozaimasu.
Matt, go ahead and peel it back one slide to your
Oh,
contact
yes.
info.
Let's see, go back.
And
There you go.
And we have a lot of questions to go to. I was just chatting with Ash and Dan and said, I got an easy one because there's questions rolling in left and right. All right. So from Matea, is starting out working at an existing games company in Japan to build up your network and rapport a viable option before trying to start your own company?
So let's see. Is starting out working at an existing games company in Japan to build out your network?
I would always say yes. So I think if you can join a company, you can learn the ins and out, and also those cultural aspects, right? I think one of the things that's so important is learning that cultural aspect, because once you create your own company, as much as you want to insulate yourself, right, using your own culture that you brought from the US, right, you're going to need to have Japanese workers. And if you don't understand that cultural context when you have Japanese workers, you're gonna have a lot of pain, right? And so I would definitely say it's good to join and then build up, but just be careful about their non-competition contracts, right? And so as long because when I worked for Square Enix, I was able to just keep working on my side projects. I just needed to make sure it was listed there. But yes, it's definitely a viable option.
From Corey, for someone interested in working at existing game companies in Japan, would you say it's worthwhile to travel to attend these kinds of events for networking if we have the means to do so?
Let's see.
Uh, then I would say yes. So I've had a lot of people come visit me in Japan. I've had a lot of people come to like the Tokyo Game Show where we've met up, and I've been able to introduce them to a couple of different like key people, and also I think in general, if meeting people is so important, right? Being able to build that connection. So, for example, even now, the people who I've worked with at Square Enix, I still meet them, right? I just met them last year. One of the actually the worker who got left from maternity leave. She already has her baby, and we met up for coffee at the most recent Tokyo Game Show. And so the one thing I'll say is that if you do come, make sure you stay in touch. I think that's one thing that is very different compared to the U.S., where maybe if I connect with you, then I'm like, okay, cool, you're in my my database, right? In Japan, try your best to, even if it's like very mundane, right? If it's like, oh hey, I saw the weather was changing. Oh hey, I saw that it's sakura season, right? Make sure to follow up. But I guess that can also be the same in the US. But I would say yes, it's definitely worth it, especially if you have a plan,
Plans. That's crazy. We
right?
don't we don't do plans. So from Aaron on YouTube, how open or closed are Japanese indie studios and developers to work with? How open are they to work with foreign providers, like for example, marketing agencies?
Yeah. So to open, how open, I think for them, they're very open, right? I think the thing that you will need to provide is the I guess the need or the technical, the cultural expertise. It's kind of hard to frame, but basically, if you are a marketing agency, you need to prove to them that you can do what you need to do in the Japanese field, right? If you're a marketing agency and you're like, hey, I want to work with you, the first thing they'll say is, okay, who have you worked with here in Japan? What Japanese related things have you done, right? And if you can't kind of prove that you have the ability or have the experience to work with the Japanese, um, I guess, audience, it's going to be kind of a hard sell, right? They'll love to meet you, they'll love to talk, but if you don't have that insight that they're looking for that they know will be necessary in order to appeal to a Japanese audience, it actually will be very, very difficult to close a deal.
All right, we got 3 more, and I'm going to try to get through them fast because I have a kids basketball game to go to. Important stuff.
Yes.
From Corey, you mentioned workdays being longer in general, from 9 to 9. Does that mean working hours are longer, or that there are more or longer breaks during the day? I guess
So,
it's not the.
so it's this is kind of funny. So I don't want to throw like dirt on the Japanese work environment, but okay. So just think of it like so in the U.S. So we work 9 to 5, but do we really work 9 to 5? Right? We might have a lunch break there. Some of our time might be talking to our coworkers who are trying to talk about the latest game or whatever. We might just spend time just looking at different emails. With Japan, just all of that is emphasized, right, or expanded on. So, for example, even though I might finish my work at 5, um, if my boss does not leave at 5, I am obligated to stay. There's no legal requirement for me to stay, but it's all about that harmony here in Japan. So if your boss is still here, then you have to stay. And then from there, then you might also have to do like a nomikai or like a drink party. And that's also considered an obligation. Things are kind of changing, but typically a lot of the reasons why people stay long hours is because of that cultural fluff. So I'll definitely say that like let me just make sure. Does that mean working hours are longer? And then yes. Yes. So their working hours are longer, but it's also because of that cultural fluff as well.
So if your boss doesn't leave and you finished all your stuff, what do you do?
You look busy.
Oh, same thing we do here. Okay, got it. Understood. Watch NCAA basketball tournaments. That's what we do.
Exactly.
All right. So Aaron asked, how can I find Otar's Discord? I suppose it's in Japanese. I searched for it and it gave me a lot of results that are non-related.
Yeah. I can post the link in the Discord. That's not a problem. But yeah.
All right. So last one. And yeah, keep in mind, Mike is on the Discord. So if you're not on the Discord and you have questions, we'll carry it over there. Discord.gg/indie game business. Or at this point, just Google indie game business and everything that we have will pop up because we're everywhere, apparently. So Haunting Human Studios says, are they mainly focused on in-person events and such, or are there any good online communities that can be approached?
Good question. I would say mostly in person. So I think right now in person is probably number one. So if you can be here physically, all the more better. There is an online presence. So for example, Tokyo Indies has an online presence. Otaru has an online presence. Melting Hack and IGDA has an online presence on Discord. So you can join the Discord even from remote. You can meet people, you can chit chat, and you can connect, right? There's not too many game jams online. I guess there's the global game jam. And so if you join those communities and a big game jam that's remote comes in, then that's an opportunity. But typically, I think even for a global game jam, they might have a local presence there. To answer your question, yes to both, but definitely there's an emphasis on in-person events.
Mike, this has been fantastic. And I'm actually going to have my son watch this because he's at that age that he is absolutely into anime and manga. And it's like, I want to go to Japan. And I'm like, okay.
Yes.
So here's what you need to do. But yeah, I've loved this. This has been great. I learned stuff along the way. And so thanks, man. Appreciate it. And let me know if you're going to be at GDC or anything like that, because I'd love to just catch up in person.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that.
But to the rest of you, this concludes our, I don't even know how many we've done at this point, indie game business sessions. I think we're up to like 20 or so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know, scary, seriously. Thank you, everyone. We're going to keep doing it. We have another deep dive, which is our one-day events coming up in May, and then we'll have another sessions with meetings and everything in September. But for now, I would say enjoy your weekend, no matter where you are, and we will all see you soon. Thanks, everybody.